get to our message this morning. If not, this will be it. How many of you guys have routines? A routine in the morning. Things you do. You know, might be pop out of bed, go into the bathroom, brush your teeth, do whatever the necessary things are, and then come out and fix your breakfast or whatever it is you're going to do. And so I have a routine every Sunday morning that I go through, and I'm not going to bore you with the limits of what that is or what the steps are, but I rolled out of bed this morning and did all the things I needed to do, got ready, walked out into the living room and was getting things prepped to come in this morning, and grabbed my bananas and poured me a cup of coffee, and I started drinking this new almond milk chocolate coffee. Really good stuff. But I'll have that in the morning when it's hot, because sometimes I just want something cool. And so I walk in and I pull out this mason jar that I've got, because I like to drink out of mason jars. You know, we are in the South. It reminds me of being home. And so pull out my mason jar and I pour my coffee into it, and I go back to put it in the outside fridge that we have that I stored in, and I walk back in and there is coffee everywhere. I'm like, what in the world is going on? And I pick up the mason jar, and in the bottom of it is a perfectly chipped hole. Now, how often do you find a perfectly chipped hole in a piece of glass and everything else is intact with nothing cracked? It doesn't happen. I'm trying to figure out how this is going, and what's going on? I'm more upset that there's a lake of coffee on my counter and that I wasted this precious commodity than I am that there was a crack in my mason jar. And so I'm like, where is it coming from? And I pick it up and it's just streaming out of the bottom of my cup. And so I immediately reach up in the cabinet, pull out a backup mason jar, dump it into it.
Hallelujah.
And I'm so grateful for the new mason jar.
Hallelujah.
Because the other one was old and used and recycled from something that I had bought. These were new that I had just purchased that came out of a package and were clean. So as I pulled this new mason jar out and poured it in, it had emptied about half the cup of coffee on the counter, which caused me to waste half a roll of paper towels cleaning it up.
Oh no, those are so precious.
I know. That's like liquid gold. It's solid tree gold today. You know? And so I'm cleaning up the mess this morning. I'm going through it, and, you know, God speaks to us in the funniest ways. And as I'm cleaning that up, he reminded me of Matthew chapter 9. And so I want to read that to you, and then I'll tell you what I got from it. Verse 14. One day the disciples of John the Baptist came to Jesus and asked him, whose disciples were they?
John the Baptist.
They were John the Baptist. Why don't your disciples fast like we do and the Pharisees do? There's a difference here. There's a different mindset going on, right?
Yes.
I mean, you know, there's a different mindset going on between the church today. There are those who are living in fear and those who are living by faith. And Jesus replied, do wedding guests mourn while celebrating with the groom? Of course not. But someday the groom will be taken away from them and then they will fast. Besides, who would patch old clothing with new cloth? Sounds like Jesus, doesn't it? Just start asking you questions to confuse you. For the new patch would shrink and rip away from the old cloth, leaving an even bigger tear than before. And no one puts new wine into old wineskins. For the old wineskins would burst from the pressure, spilling the wine and ruining the skin. New wine is stored in new wineskins so that both are preserved. And as I was opening that up today, I was just thinking back as I looked at the bottom of that glass that had a perfectly chipped, and guys, there's no way, it was a perfect hole. It was about a 1/16 to an 1/8 of an inch round, and it was just streaming out like you had a water cooler and you pushed the button and were waiting on water to fall in your glass. It was just pouring out the bottom of it. Matter of fact, I was tempted to just hold it up and see how long it would take to fill up the other mason jar. But I didn't want to make a mess, so I just poured it. And how often do we find holes that we try to patch in our faith? And I know that we're in what's deemed a scary time in the world today. But it's not scary. There's nothing to be scared of. God is God. I want to live for as long as I possibly can. But I also know that if I'm doing what I've been asked to do, again, there's no secret here that we've been studying on following authority and being obedient to it. Before any of this mess ever started, we started this message. And it's imperative that we do what we've been asked to do. However, we also can't live in fear. Guys, when we come to Christ, most of us came to Christ because we didn't want to spend eternity in some fiery lake of hell being tortured by demons, because that's what we were told. And hopefully you have come to a place as mature believers, especially you listening by media presentation today, that you are in a place where you're not serving God because you're in fear of going to the lake of fire or spending eternity in hell, but you're serving God because you love Him so much, you want to be with Him. That causes my faith to have to be built. And if my faith has to be built, maybe there was something in the way that I was doing things last year and even coming into this year that needed to be fixed. Now, I got a phone call right before service today that Christian Television was asking all pastors to gather their people and pray for a miracle. Guys, we've been praying. We pray consistently. And I'm not saying that it's wrong for them to call for us to pray. But how do we define the word miracle? I define it this way. Preparation and planning meeting God's timing. And how often do you look through the scripture and see that our timing is off from God's timing? That the planning and preparation of everything we've been going through was opening the door for the timing when it came that we could step through.
Amen.
And sometimes we're in a world that pushes so hard. I'm reminded of the song by the country group Alabama. I'm in a hurry to get things done. I rush and rush until life's no fun. And I can't tell you how many conversations my wife and I have had on our wonderful walks that we take every day together. Guys, we were walking before, but we were walking at different times because of the chaos of the day and work schedules and everything that was going on. And we're able to settle down and set our plans in. You know, we were discussing the other day how much we were just going to a store to get out of the house to go find something to do. We weren't even just buying anything. We're not shoppers per se. We would just go walk through the store just to get out of the house. I just can't be here anymore. I got to get out. Where are we at now? We're confined to the house. You know, we've done, we have enjoyed ourselves as family. Our neighbors think we're crazy because we're playing wiffle ball until 8:30 at night. We got fun music playing in the side yard. The lights on, and we're playing wiffle ball. We got our little blow